Welcome back to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Thanks again for joining us. We're joined by Eric Garcetti. Eric is the president of the Los Angeles City Council. Sir, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Well, Los Angeles faces yet another budget crisis, over $400 million. Hard to know, hard to say. But there is some good news. The City Council, the mayor, has negotiated at some level an agreement with almost half the employees of the city, almost 20,000 employees, that could really help the budget deficit. Talk to us about it.
Absolutely, and credit to the workers and their unions who stepped up across the table. Quietly, we negotiated. It's different than headlines where you shout at each other. I always believe you get more done when you actually sit down and say, this is a common problem, let's solve this together. And we had a breakthrough agreement to be able to have some shared sacrifice, meaning that we will protect people's health care, but they have to pay a little bit more into it. We will end furloughs, but we'll have to have some unpaid holidays. Things that will get us through these years, balance the budget, and not come back to the workers every 2 months for a little bit more. This should be able to help us balance the budget on July 1st and have it balanced for this entire year.
So about half the workers are covered. The other half we're still waiting. One group that we don't have covered is the DWP. And our viewers know I'm not a big fan of the DWP. I guess I shouldn't blame the workers per se, but is the DWP, is that union going to come in line?
Well, you know, I hope that with a ratepayer advocate in place, a measure that I authored that overwhelmingly was
78%.
passed, 78%, over 80% for Measure J, which allows us to get DWP budgets in on time for the people to look at. It will finally see about the operations of this department, clean it up, make the necessary cuts. I was really pleased to see our new general manager, who I'm very optimistic about, look at the waste and the cuts that he could do now before coming to the people for a rate increase, and to reverse what they did with, you know, socking us with a 28% proposed increase, which we were able to stop, but in the midst of the worst recession, that was unconscionable. So we need to control costs at Department of Water and Power. We do pay less than our neighboring cities, and that's a good thing, but still, that doesn't mean that we're going to let them off.
Is there any update on the disaster that was last summer as it relates to the DWP? I mean, we have a report from the controller who has said that the DWP lied. They lied to the City Council when they said they didn't have the funds to transfer to the city. What's the status of that report? You
know, that report I believe was accurate. It confirmed what we said at the time, which is that I knew that I was lied to. I went to the board that oversees the Department of Water and Power, and we said, do not do this rate increase, and they still voted for it. We had to ultimately reject that from the City Council. I'm very troubled with the way things went there. This is a publicly owned utility.
It's a sibling.
Our utility.
It's a sibling of the City Council.
It's absolutely part of the city family. And
it's domestic violence.
Well, we have a responsibility to make sure that people are held accountable. So I hope that that will, you know, some of the folks in law enforcement, other people out there will look at that. We'll make sure people are held accountable. But I do believe that having ratepayer advocates, somebody on our side, will finally ensure that that doesn't happen again, and may be able to look back at that as well and point out where all the people and the City Council was misled.
I want to talk about this deal, by the way, with the unions. It was really interesting to me that here we are in Los Angeles, the second largest city in the country, and our union negotiations seem to go fairly smoothly. Why is it that there is such contention in the Midwest, which in a lot of ways, you know, the union movement grew up in the Midwest? Well, what's going on there?
You know, I think people want elected officials to solve problems. They don't want them to be ideological or to get into arguments for the sake of arguments. But I think some people made the calculation in Wisconsin, I can go further in my party, I can go, you know, be on Fox News. If I take on teachers and public employees who weren't the cause of the economic downturn, to me, when you see walkouts and lockouts and protests and takeovers of state capitol, that's failure. That's failure on everybody's part. That's failure especially on the parts of the leaders who can't resolve the problem. At that time, he had a great deal that would have balanced the budget, but instead the governor in Wisconsin decided, no, I'm going to go even further. We have great, dedicated public employees. They are sharing the sacrifice, but I've always said you engage people, sit down and solve it together like a family or business does. That's the way to solve a problem.
Eric Garcetti, thanks for joining us. President of the Los Angeles City Council. I'm Brad Pomerance. Back to HLN.